So, Sylvia, take the lead.
Okay, so I thought of you. Carl was asking questions about the yellow rental car, which I do not remember, and I thought we could talk about some of our memories of living in Cardston and also living in Fort Chipewyan. So I know chronologically, I suppose we should start with Fort Chipewyan, and I don't know what we've covered before. I know one thing that Angie would like us to talk about is powdered milk.
Oh,
she she was so amazed when she learned that we had to have powdered milk when we were up in Chip because there is no such thing as a cow in Fort Chip. And then when we get back to Cardston in Ottawa, Mom always kept the powdered milk.
that was
They
just
didn't get
normal.
real. They didn't get real milk until we went away to university. You know.
Yeah,
And, yeah. Anyway, that just kind of
treat
cracked me.
visiting the bodfishes.
Yeah, I know, like real milk. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know. And then like other memories of Fort Chip, I was just remembering Bro Kelpin made some sort of like little clubhouse shack on their property. And I was very amazed that, he must have been 12 or something, and I was 6 because Tanya was 10. So he was
Okay.
older. Do you remember?
I don't remember that. I do remember somebody gave me a pair of Morse code keys with buzzers attached to small pieces of plywood. And
Okay.
so Bro and I were having lots of fun pretending we were spies or something, trying to communicate to each other with these things. The only downfall was, of course, that neither of us knew the first thing about Morse code.
And that was maybe your start, right? Because
Well,
eventually,
actually,
yeah,
that's very close. One of the summers that we were up there, Dad came home for lunch, and he said, "Hey, Jimmy, I gotta take or send a radiogram to Ottawa. You want to come down to the DOT operators with me?"
Cool.
Oh, well, yeah, I'd love to. So we walked down the one and only street in town, not very far from Ma's Cafe.
Okay.
There's the DOT operator's office, and we go in, and of course, immediately I notice CW being audible. And of course, the operator, I want to think it was Mr. Files, but I'm not sure that's not getting mixed up with someone else. Anyhow, he there was also a Morse code key on the counter as he
Okay.
came in. And so Dad did his business and so forth. And he could tell that I was just absolutely a curiosity box at this point. So he said, "Hey, Jim, would you like to come in and see the equipment?" So he took me into the back room, and there was a nice rack just filled with transmitters and receivers,
Hmm.
all out in the open with tubes glowing in the dark. And I was just, something that day went click. And I thought, when I grow up, I want to work with that.
Hmm.
And so when I graduated high school, I wanted to go to Shopper City U to learn how to fix radios.
Yeah.
And as we all know, Dad was absolutely determined that we were going to university. And I wasn't even halfway through my first semester before I realized it wasn't taking me any place I wanted to go. But since nobody had sat down with me and explained how life works after high school, well, okay, we'll finish this off. And, you know, basically 15 years, well, 20 years later, I finally start taking the education that my heart really wanted when I
Mhm.
graduated from high school. But it all went down to that trip down to the DOT operator's office, and something just clicked, and this was it. I knew it.
Fascinating.
That is.
Yeah.
What's a radiogram? It's not a telegram, would be Morse code, right? Is
Well,
radiogram just
Well, the radiogram is just sent by Morse code, but over the air.
Oh, okay. So
Oh, okay.
is someone listening to it? I mean, this is
Yeah,
early
this-
60s, right? I mean, you'd think they'd have
Yeah.
more technology.
Well, remember at that time they were very busy building out the dew line and stuff. So the government maintained a whole network of stations, just like the one in Chip, and staffed them so that, during business hours, there was somebody on the air listening at all the different communities.
Wow.
And they obviously had, um, a network of frequencies they used. And, um, you know, that was the only real-time communications that Chip had with the outside world.
Yeah, if you think like before the internet, I'm sure now they have like satellite links and internet.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's like, well, everything was like that by letter,
Yeah.
take your triplicate copies and
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And so this must have been some kind of priority, because normally all of this stuff that would have been done in the Indian Affairs office would have gone just by snail mail.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So
that's very interesting.
yeah, and so I have, good memories about that. And I remember being acutely aware of the fact that there was ourselves, uh, the Kelpins, the RCMP officer and his family, and then the DOT operator and his family.
Teachers?
Well, I was saving them for last. They're my least favorite. And then
We never played with those other kids. I mean,
no,
I only remember the Kelpins. They must not
yeah,
have been.
that's it. Well, they were next door and readily accessible.
Yeah. Were they still there when we left, Chip?
I would
I want to
imagine.
say yes. I don't recall them moving out.
Yeah.
His father was the Mike Kelpin. He was the manager of the Hudson Bay Company. So
Yeah.
he would,
Yeah. But that would. Okay, so one of the other things I remember, which I don't know if it's on, if we've recorded this, is our rubber ice
oh yeah.
experience, do you remember that in the spring thaw, we go out on the ice and it was going like this, and we thought it was, oh,
was
it's so
fun.
great, it's rubber ice, and you're like, oh my gosh, my kids were on a lake jumping up and down on the like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like sometimes it's amazing we're still here,
Yeah.
because that was
Oh, very much so.
yeah. Also, how about hiking with
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I remember
Yeah.
hiking out east we hiked to that beach just to the east of
Yeah.
us. Not
Sandy
Isle
Bay.
Cross. We took the Chug of
No,
Rum there,
it
but
was Sandy Bay.
Sandy Bay. I
Yeah.
remember Dad taking his 30-30 gun with him, and he would do some target practice and stuff. Do you remember Dad taking his 30-30?
Yep.
No.
And I remember him very carefully teaching us about gun safety
Okay.
and how you would never point the weapon at anybody, even if you were
Yeah.
sure it was empty,
Yeah.
because it might not be. And
Yeah.
I remember he gave each of us a couple of opportunities to take a shot at a tin can 100 yards down the trail. And I remember being absolutely startled by the recoil hitting my shoulder.
That has a
I do
kick.
not.
Yeah,
I do
why
not
does it do
remember
that?
Well, that was so. I remember hiking, like I'm thinking of summer hiking with that when the mosquitoes were out in full force.
Yeah.
Hiking like inland, and I had I was wearing my my Miss Muffet outfit, which had a cape, and I lost the cape on the hike.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear.
Like it's funny, like oh yeah, so I lost my Miss Muffet cape.
When you look
I
on Google Maps or Google Earth, um, you see the hills or the hill in behind Fort Chip, and we have movies of us going up there and being
Yeah.
out of the mosquitoes. That
yeah,
was
Yeah, but
nice.
we had branches that were waving on the way. I think that's in some
Yeah.
movies and stuff like that. And I
yeah.
don't know how often we went there, but I do
Yeah.
remember the one time.
I remember occasions when we did, and I think I remember times when once or twice when I went by myself, just
Whoa.
because it was so nice to be out of doors without being eaten alive.
Okay.
And I think that's part of the reason I have fonder memories of our winter hikes,
Yeah.
because we weren't being attacked by anything with wings. And, when you're bundled up, everything's just fine. And, uh, I think, you know, first you had your regular socks, and then you put your uh, big wool socks over that.
Yeah.
Then you got into your inner shoe, which was actually a moccasin, and then you put your outer shoe over top of that and tied it around uh, just below your knee.
Yeah.
And I remember you were always wearing at least one pair of long johns,
Yeah.
and probably also um, the half a long john that would just cover your down to your waist on top. And then I remember uh, having to put my arms up so mom could drop the parka over
The
top
shell.
of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so forth. And I remember how very comfortable those were. And I was kind of unhappy when spring came and I couldn't go out because, that outfit was so comfortable. Then you were having to wear rubber boots and, you
Yeah.
know, slurg,
Yeah.
slurg, slurg.
Why are there? It seems to me that there's so many more mosquitoes in the north than there are in Ontario. Is that because of spraying DDT, or I mean, of course, you were in junior forest rangers. It was like Fort. I mean, Aylan Lake, it wasn't sprayed for mosquitoes, but it was nowhere near as bad as
We were on the
Fort
point.
Chipewyan.
It
Yeah,
depends. June is brutal anywhere in the woods, but by July, there's some hope for you. And the dragonflies are out and they're swarming. I just love dragonflies because they chase down horseflies, deer fly, mosquitoes, and
yeah.
yeah, I just love it. And obviously the swifts and the swallows, they are eating up those mosquitoes like crazy. But in June, it's just brutal.
Well, and then of course in Fort Chip we didn't have black flies, right? I mean, I don't recall having black flies in. I don't know
Oh, yes.
why they would
I
stop.
remember seeing them flying off with bits of meat.
That in Fort Chip.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember horseflies,
Well,
and I'm sure
horsefly.
and I know they're not the same as black flies. I know that,
Okay.
but I'm not sure I remember black flies up there, but I have no reason to think that they wouldn't be up there.
Well, I know there's a law that that outlaws black flies in Alberta. That's what's happened. They had to cross the plains to get from Ontario to Alberta, and they couldn't manage it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, do they have maps of where, they have bird maps, like they have the range of.
Yeah.
Do they have the range of black flies? Yeah, because I
I
never heard of a black fly until we moved to Ottawa.
oh they're brutal. Yeah.
I have a tale to tell you.
Okay.
You mentioned, where there are fewer mosquitoes in Ontario and stuff like that. And this actually comes from Elaine's grandmother and Uncle John both. They were staying at a cottage in up around Ipperwash during the late spring of 1945, and around 6:30 in the morning, distant thunder is approaching, and just the whole cabin begins to shake. And it was a bomber outfitted to spray DDT,
Oh,
and they were flying along the shores of Lake Huron, spraying DDT with such a concentration that it actually began to ruin the paint job on the car they had.
oh,
And thinking, oh my goodness, now you couldn't buy the DDT if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I know we're reminiscing about Fort Chip, but I remember, and I've said this before, at 9 Mayo, riding with friends behind the DDT truck spraying, and we would ride our bikes along in behind, going through the clouds, and didn't see any problem with that. Hasn't
No,
affected me any.
no, nothing strange at all.
Yeah.
I remember digging snow caves in the snow drifts in behind the school in the winter,
Yeah.
obviously, and the outhouse.
It was a two-holer or was there a boys and a girls, and each had two holes? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember one time in the middle of winter, I had put my pants on inside out. And inside out. As a matter of fact, just yesterday I put my workout tights on backwards. So this is a lifelong issue.
I hate when that happens.
But I got sent out to the outhouse to put him right. You know, like
Okay.
I had to go turn my pants right side out.
Oh, my.
I
Yeah.
I remember learning how to read in Fort Chip and the satisfaction of reading Dick and Jane. And
Oh,
that was so satisfying. And to start from there and just read anything. I just really, I was big into going into the library in when we moved to Ottawa and get anything about the North, dog sleds, Call of the Wild, and those type of books. I just really enjoyed it.
that's
Plus,
neat.
plus, Jim, I really, uh, you would get your Tom Swift, read it in under 2 hours, and then I'd be digging away at it because I was a fan of Tom Swift too.
And
The
I
new
think
Tom Swift.
I was third down the line there. I would get the cat. So, like, you did first grade in Chip, is that right,
Yeah,
Tom? And
I know
I
we've had
did.
some controversy about this, but I knew I did grade 1 and 2 there
Oh, well,
in grade. Yeah,
hmm. Well,
Yes, I would have done 2 and 3 there.
I did 1, and then I skipped grade 2 and was doing 3. How could we be in this? Weren't you like 2 years ahead of me, Jim? Like, what did you do in Edmonton? Were you just, because I was in
I did,
kindergarten in Edmonton.
yeah, I did grade 1 in Edmonton.
Oh, okay, so you were 2. So then I started first grade. But then when we went to Cardston, I started in 4th grade.
Um,
I've got
I
my
remember,
report to prove from Cardston. I'll stick to that.
yeah,
You,
I did, I had 2 teachers in Cardston. One was Mr. Capsis, had him
Oh,
for a single year. And then the following year, I had Mr. Mathers, who was just such a total sweetheart. And um, I would think I was doing 4 and 5. And then I know it was in 6th grade that we moved to Ottawa. And suddenly French was no longer safely rendered on the back of the cereal box. It's being force fed down my throat. And but anyhow,
let's just stick to good memories in
yeah.
Cardston.
Well, I was
And
gonna
or
get
Chip.
back to Chip. I remember at least 2 occasions where we went on fairly long expeditions on the bombardiers to Fort Smith, I think, or something like that.
Wow.
And we traveled right through the night.
but that
And
was you. I don't think I went. Did I? Do you think we all went?
that's what I don't know.
I
Mhm.
probably would not have gone. I remember going on school event or there was some competition in
Yeah,
another community, but I didn't do an overnighter or anything. So maybe you were able to do a ride along with Dad somewhere, which would be
yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
that actually semi rings a bell for me. Of course, our memories are not perfect.
yeah.
But that you got to go with Dad.
Okay.
I was left at home.
I remember when we took a boat down the Catfish and we got to one of those fire lookout towers,
I remember that.
and each of us
Scared me.
made it a certain height up the ladder, but nobody made it all the way. And Mom was really intrigued by the fact that each of us had our own rope limits that we couldn't get past.
Yeah, I remember a barge with sulfur powder. You
Yes.
remember? Yeah. I
Yeah,
have to
that was
stand
after,
correct. I have
that
to,
was on the way back to Chip
okay.
after we hit the deadhead on the Athabasca River.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
stand corrected. I
It's
I did not do grade 2 in Chip. Sorry, yeah, in Chip, like I said. I have, boy, those are weird. Come on, come on. I don't know how to do this.
Well, you got to
Um,
turn your funky background off.
yeah, I know.
wow, Carl.
So that's Mom and Dad saved my Cardston Elementary School report for grade 2 and grade 3.
Wow. I don't think I have mine that far back. I think I have my high school stuff that they might have saved. But I was looking in our what do you call it? The
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
That's
that is so cool.
Yeah,
It also, you'd think it would also be in the Christmas letters, right? But
yeah.
I have them up, but I can't see 1960. Carl, our little clown.
Little clown. Yeah.
Yeah. For but yeah, she didn't say much about school and stuff. Yeah.
I'm just trying to. I remember scalding my hand on the jug of rum when it was rough seas, and
Oh, that was terrible.
yeah, that was brutal. And remember, Mom, or we heard some terrible whining and whimpering, and we realized that it was Sam, and he was out in his
Yeah.
dog house, and he was brown with mosquitoes, and we brought him in, and he scurried in under the bed and was shivering, not shivering, just shaking so much because he had been so traumatized. That gives me the creeps to think that, oh, poor Sam.
Yeah. And I really felt bad that we didn't get to take him to Cardston because I really enjoyed having a dog.
Yeah, sled dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like that was a cool thing that Dad did, right? He made that harness, which was like I noticed that the harness setup that they used in Old Crow, that we saw in Dad's movie, it's different than what they used in Alaska.
Oh,
Huh.
yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it's interesting how low it was. His was kind of
Yeah. A
comes
cereal
around
thing.
the waist and then these long straps, whereas like each dog would have a
Whole
Yeah. Their
line.
own tether.
yeah, yeah,
So they'd be a
Yeah,
fan. But when you think of the terrain, that's what made the difference because
yeah,
when you're traveling through trees, you can't have 7 dogs all going in slightly different directions.
yeah. You
I
don't
know,
go far.
yeah. But yeah, so it was a summer when we took in six. I'm looking at with one eye at the Christmas letter of 61. Summer of 61 is when we moved to Cardston. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would.
And that was also when we went to Ottawa.
Okay, well, so we would have left there.
Yeah, I think we went
then
to
take-
Ottawa, came
yeah.
back, and then moved to Cardston all in one
Yeah.
all in one summer.
Yeah.
We
So
went
maybe that's how
went
we
to
got
London.
to Cardston. Maybe
Hmm?
we came, maybe it was coming back on the train, and we we had to rent a car to get to Cardston.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think
that's,
that's what happened. And then in Cardston, Dad ordered the 62 Pontiac, which would have been available in the fall.
Mm.
okay.
And
Just to say, like I'm just reading this. We actually like went all the way while we were away on vacation back east. Dad got the news that
yes,
he'd been accepted to Cardston, so we had to go. So we probably went back to Fort Chip. He ordered a
yes.
car
Okay.
somehow. And then
yeah.
how did we get to from wherever we got off the boat?
Well, that's what I think the rental
Yeah,
car
that
was
makes
all
sense.
about.
Yeah, that
Because
makes
we
sense.
would have, like our first attempt was to get to Fort Smith,
Fort McMurray.
Fort McMurray. I'll
Yeah,
be all
Fort
right.
Smith's the other direction.
Yeah, yeah. I was just realizing I had my merds wixed there. So we left Chip in the Fort Chipewyan named boat,
Yeah.
and made it down the river a certain distance before we hit that deadhead. Had to go back. Well, first of all, we had to wait for a day or two until somebody came by who could give us a lift.
Yeah.
They got us as far as those uh, barges with all that yellow,
Okay.
and then we had to wait while someone contacted. And the trouble was, the boat had a radio transceiver in it, but it
Okay.
hadn't been maintained.
Oh,
And so it wasn't transmitting. So we had to wait until a passerby was able to get us as far as those barges. And then they carried on across the lake or wherever they were going and got a message through to Chip that we were stranded on the barges. And then somebody from Chip had to come across and retrieve us from there and get us back. And of course, all of our earthly goods were sitting on the barge. So we come back to an empty house waiting for the next MASL scheduled flight to Fort Mac. And then from there, they were overbooked. So somebody got to sit in the stewardess's seat, and I got to sit in the pilot jump seat in the cockpit
okay.
as we flew south toward Edmonton on the promise that I wouldn't say a word. Well, you never saw a kid who was so quiet, polishing his halo so hard, because I just absolutely loved the view. And we got to Edmonton. I'm sure we stayed at Hotel McDonald, and then would have traveled south on the rail liner to Calgary, and it probably would have been from Calgary that
Okay.
Dad would have rented the car to make it down
Okay.
to Cardston. And you know, that was when you ordered a car with all the options you wanted,
Okay.
rather than just package one or package two or package three. And so there would have been, my guess would have been a time of a couple of months waiting for Oshawa to make the car
Okay.
and get shipped. Because I'm pretty sure it was wintry when we got the car.
That's what the video shows.
Yeah, so it
Very,
would have, it obviously took, a couple of months, and I'm sure Mom and Dad were eager to get the car because then they would be able to get to Lethbridge where there was much better shopping than just in Cardston.
yeah. I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about my. I have good memories of that taking that Chipewyan southwards when we left Fort Chipewyan and being in the wheelhouse. Well, that's where I learned how to play solitaire. And, and
Oh,
yeah, I remember that. I played lots of solitaire when we were waiting, and I remember the crew just me crawling around the different parts of the boat, but looking down, not in the hold, but down where the crew were sleeping, and we must have slept elsewhere. But anyways, that was fascinating to be on a river cruise.
yeah.
Yeah. So Jim, circling back, I've been scanning the Christmas letter. So in Fort Chipewyan, 1960, you were in grade 4.
Oh,
That's, yeah. So I think,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, then it must have been 5 and 6 that I was in.
In Cardston 5 and 4. Because I know I was in fourth grade. It says Sylvia is in grade 3, having skipped grade 2. So I think,
Yeah.
okay.
and,
Yeah.
I skipped 3 and not. I I know I skipped a year, and I can't remember. I thought it was in Maryville Public School, but perhaps not. Hmm. I remember missing out in fractions in uh, I was sitting in the lower grade and listening to the next grade over. Whenever we were in a whole series, it must have been for,
Yeah, it was Fort Chip.
yeah, but maybe in Maryville Public there were 2 grades in a room, and I remember listening to the other part of the class learning about
yeah.
fractions, but I missed out on it. And then when I was moved over 2 or 3 aisles or 2 or 3 rows, then I listened to the grade that I was in, learning about fractions. But I caught up. It's fine.
Yeah, so this same time was you were in, it says you were in first grade. Carl, our little clown, like every other first grader, he is thrilled with learning to read, like you said, so yeah. Anyway, it's those Christmas letters are really uh insight into mom's um style of writing and her personality and
Yeah,
details of our life,
yeah.
So,
She kept that up for so long. It was
yeah,
something.
yeah. Huh.
For
Weren't we wondering if we went to London during that trip in 61? It does say we did go to London. Oops.
good.
Laura, my kids are saying that that's why I can't talk right now.
Well, I very specifically remember that you guys got to take the LNPS down to Port Stanley,
We did?
and I was
What?
supposed to be going the next day, but Dad got the news, and so I missed out on that train ride
Oh,
that you guys had gotten, and instead we were heading back to Chip in a hurry because of Cardston.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah. And I always felt badly about that because I'd been very intrigued by the notion of an electric railroad.
Hmm.
Mm. Oh, was it electric?
Yes.
Oh.
Although,
Uh, mm,
yeah, because when I first moved to London, uh, the old arms that would be holding the pantograph over the rail line were still installed. And in that first year or two, they were busy ripping all of that out.
Okay.
It was, yeah, just something I
uh,
felt badly having missed the opportunity, but I understood this was important. So, okay, there will be another time.
you had, yeah, so you had FOMO, right? Fear of missing out way, or what's
Yeah,
retroactive FOMO when you knew you missed out?
yeah.
Um, that's I had a thought, can't remember. Dangerous thoughts that just go by.
Oh,
Um, can't remember. Um, yeah, that was really, yeah, I think that, so that we must have met Dave. I was telling Carl last week that Dave Wake, we met him at that time. So I was like 6-ish or 7. He was probably almost 9 or 10, but still tall. And I tried to hug him, because we had never met them, right? And
Yeah,
it was awkward, and I felt very embarrassed and awkward. And it was, you know, and it's funny how I still remember that embarrassment all these years later, which I think I told him one time and we laughed about it. So it
oh,
hasn't damaged me for life or anything, but it's funny how
but you still
you,
remember.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you do remember those awkward moments in your, at least I do.
yes,
I've
Um,
got too many.
yeah,
I try and
yeah, like
forget them.
yeah.
stupid
I
things I've said.
remember at the time being very puzzled as to why the bodfishes were so much more fun to be around than the wakes. Yeah,
Oh,
it's like, and every time we came to London, who did we see? The bodfishes. And every
yeah.
once in a while we get marched down to uh, Walton Marges and then go back to the bodfishes so we could enjoy ourselves.
Uh, I remember it. Uh, I remember walking down there. It seemed like so far
Yes.
to walk the 2 blocks down there, and there was that store halfway. That
Yeah, that store is still there and still open.
oh, cool. But I remember their dog, which Lady would have been the one we first met, or Lucky, or
Probably, yeah. They
Mm,
just had such a love for Dachshunds.
yeah.
I remember being fascinated by obviously during the summer morning glories, and Aunt Marge would um, I'd go out and she'd show me the morning glories, and that was fascinating that they closed up in the afternoon, and oh
Yeah. I well, Aunt Marge was a knitter too. I remember her uh knitting sweaters, and I was,
okay,
with 5 needles and everything, and I would just say often, when I'm knitting, sometimes I reminisce about her knitting. Also her garden. She
oh
had a
Yes.
yeah,
beautiful, and Aunt Bee's garden. Like I still think of,
oh
her
huge,
strawberries and raspberries, and
yeah,
like it's a lot of work having a garden. I mean,
yeah.
Wendy knows, and I mean I have a little garden, and I have a garden the size that I can manage.
Yeah.
The
I
Bodfish's property was so long,
Yeah,
not very
yeah,
wide, but whoa, yeah, it was
yeah,
quite a yard.
and
yeah.
it
And it's
was
so
sunny.
strange to drive by now that it's no longer the Bodfish residence.
Hmm.
I drive by and I glance in and they've made enough changes that, that's not being Charlie's anymore. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that.